Now, at least 2 bomb blasts have hit a high school and a training centre in the Afghan capital, Kabul, killing at least 6 people and injuring a number of children. The explosions occurred in a neighbourhood populated mainly by the Hazara Shia Muslims, an ethnic and religious minority frequently targeted by Sunni militant groups. No one has admitted carrying out the attack, which followed a respite in violence over the winter months and after foreign forces withdrew last year. Well, I'm joined now by Hamid Karzai, the former president of Afghanistan. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. I just want to get your reaction first to the blasts that have taken place in Western Kabul today.
Extremely sad, extremely unfortunate for our people, for our country. An atrocity of anti-human proportion. We condemn it in the strongest terms.
I want to know more about the motivation, because we see this community targeted a lot, especially, I know that no one has claimed responsibility, but we've seen the Islamic State group targeted in the past, the Taliban have targeted in the past. What do you think the motivation is? Is it ethnic, or is it just an attack on an educational facility?
No, it isn't. Ethnic. Daesh has been claiming responsibility for such attacks in the past few years. This is clearly an attack against Afghanistan's peace and movement towards stability and progress. This is clearly an attack against Afghanistan's efforts for educating its young ones. That's without a doubt.
Well, the Taliban...
This has been going on in many parts of the country.
Yes, and the Taliban promised security and peace, and this does not look like any of those things.
Well, this is a serious incident and a blowback. Yes, the country needs security, and the government of the day must provide it.
And yet they're not. What would you say to the Taliban?
Well, I would definitely want them to make sure that the country is secure and stable.
When you look at the stability and peace of the country, let's look at eastern Afghanistan then. And at the weekend, we saw a Pakistani military strike in eastern Afghanistan, which has left at least 47 Afghans dead, many of them women and children. What would you say about that then, when you've got other countries now targeting the country as well?
That was a clear violation of Afghanistan's sovereignty, of Afghanistan's territorial integrity, and the killing of Afghan women and children, which again the Afghan people condemned and protested against. We see no difference between the killing of our children today in Kabul and the killing of our women and children last Friday night in Host. We condemn it, and we tell the government of Pakistan that they better launch on a different path, on a path of a civilized relationship with Afghan people, and on a path where they would no longer use extremism or violence or terrorism as a tool against Afghanistan or in this region. Well, so the message to Pakistan is very, very clear.
In fact, the Pakistanis are accusing the Taliban of harbouring militants in that part of the country, and that is the justification for this strike.
They did the same thing with my government. They did the same thing with the government that came after me. And they're doing the same thing now with the Taliban. So this is nothing new for us. Afghanistan is a victim of terrorism. Terrorism that has constantly and repeatedly has been coming to us from Pakistan, with the training bases there, with the sanctuaries there, with the funding and inspirations coming from there. This is well known. You go back a few years, you will hear lots of American officials and other Western officials saying this publicly. So Pakistan has committed a tremendous wrong, and it has not helped Pakistan's relations with the people of Afghanistan, and it is not futuristic either for the interest of Pakistan vis-à-vis Afghanistan and its links and relations with the Afghan people.
Well, Pakistan itself is going through political turmoil right now. We saw the ousting of Imran Khan. What's your reaction to what's happening there?
We treat that as an internal matter of Pakistan. The Afghan people would not interfere in what is locally going on in Pakistan. But with regard to the change in government in Pakistan, I can tell you that when I was in office, the last year of my office, I had excellent relationship with Mian Nawaz Sharif, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, who I found to be very willing to engage fruitfully with Afghanistan. I hope that Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, the current Prime Minister of Pakistan, his brother, would follow the same path and would find that the Afghan people would respond to them very, very positively. We do wish good relationship with Pakistan, a stable relationship with Pakistan, a civilized relationship with Pakistan, away from extremism in both our countries. And the ball is in Pakistan's court to prove itself on that. Here, I believe that the current government probably is better situated to address the issue than the previous arrangements in Pakistan. Let's hope so.
In what way? So you're saying that the government, the new government of Shehbaz Sharif, is in a better position to deal with Afghanistan than the government of Imran Khan?
They're probably more of a history that they know. They have more of an experience dealing with Afghanistan and the region. I mentioned Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and his intentions. I believe there is an ability between them and us for better dialogue. If the military establishment in Pakistan allows that, such a change would definitely come through.
So you're saying that a more peaceful relationship with Afghanistan, you've talked about terrorist havens in Pakistan. Do you think that a civilian government in Pakistan it can be in a position to deal with that?
Well, I didn't get the last part. I believe you said civilian government.
Yes, I was asking about, you're saying that relationship with Afghanistan could be different under this government. Do you think, though, a civilian government is in a position to change its policy towards Afghanistan, given the power of the military establishment?
Well, that is the issue. That has been Afghanistan's difficulty in dealing with Pakistan and in improving relations with Pakistan. My experience showed that the military they sabotaged any efforts for a peaceful relationship and a fruitful existence between the two neighbors. And I found that Prime Minister Sharif, Nawaz Sharif, was inclined to such a relationship with Afghanistan. But then his government was removed. Now his brother Shahbaz Sharif is there. We expect that there will be a renewed effort by the civilian leadership in Pakistan to, for the benefit of Pakistan actually, to engage peacefully and let's say nicely and towards a civilized relationship. This is something that we hope for and something that we encourage in them.
I just want to bring your attention to the current situation in Ukraine. And I wonder if you see parallels with what's happening in Ukraine to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in the 1980s.
Well, Afghanistan has gone through lots of suffering for the past 40 years, in the past 40 years. We are now known as the saddest country in the world because of the interferences and invasions that we received from outside and the consequences of that. So we are a war-torn country. We are a war-devastated country, conflict-devastated country. For us, it's easily it provides an easy connection with those who suffer like us. We commiserate with the people of Ukraine with the suffering that they're going through, but we also would want the people of Ukraine to know that we were used in the past 40 years in the Cold War and in lots of different ways, that the people of Ukraine should be wiser and that they should not fall prey to big games, which is what is exactly going on right now.
You mean between the United States or NATO and Russia?
Between powers, between great players in whose games countries like us get stepped over. Afghanistan got stepped over. The extremism that we saw in Afghanistan was a consequence of that. The destruction of our country was a consequence of that. As a matter of fact, those who helped Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan also then allowed Pakistan to play with Afghanistan the way they have been playing disastrously with Afghanistan, and it was condoned and looked over. And I hope Ukraine would learn from our experiences and not fall into a policy of hurting themselves in a power game and getting stepped over.
I mean, we're just short on time, but I wanted to draw your attention on to what President Zelensky has said. He's accused the West of almost encouraging the aggressor by not taking a firmer stance. He's asked for more action from NATO's side. He's asked them to do more. And he said that there's been reluctance, and in some way that has then encouraged the aggressor, in this instance, the Russians. Would you say something similar happened in Afghanistan, the lack of willingness by the West to take action against the likes of the Taliban or Pakistan?
Well, in situations like we experienced in Afghanistan in the past 40 years, and what Ukraine is now is experiencing, use and abandonment comes easily there. And that's what we are seeing in Ukraine as well. So the Ukrainians should be wiser, the leadership should be wiser. They should engage in good relations with the countries of the world and in their own region.
President Karzai, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you.